regarding that kind of stuff, I mean, obviously, you know, we put a disclaimer on stuff that we can't verify. We have to be very, 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 very succinct, you know, in the true crime arena, what we can reinforce with facts or evidence. And look, who's to say, you know, it's kind of a hearsay. He can say whatever, you know, so it's about direct questions, you know, which we can ascertain correctly, you know, especially in the true crime genre, you know, and, you know, I can take your word for it as you as a witness, but obviously other people removed or what. I mean, this guy is obviously deranged, unhinged. I mean, who's to say, you know, bad of character, right, and all of that stuff. Drugs, who's to say? But here's a question, right? You know, I mean, he was saying, you know, now you have some verifiable facts about other cases that he's given you, which you can pin down, you know, as fact about homicides and stuff like that, linked to some of this stuff. Here's another question. Nobody's saying that, look, you know, big mansions and all that stuff. Was there any evidence of what he was saying about this was true?
Yeah, so he gave us a location that one of the individuals supposedly where they buried bodies up in somewhere upstate New York. To be honest, at this point, I don't remember exactly where it was. But he gave us the name of an individual that was an unusual name, and he gave us the location where this guy lived. And he said, on this guy's property, it was a big piece of property. He said, on this guy's property, there are individuals buried, dead people buried there that were used in sacrifices. He said that he knew because he had been involved with it. Well, we were able to track that individual down because, like I said, the name was unusual. I don't remember if he had since passed away or what his story was. He wasn't around, but his father lived in the same location. And he was polite enough to let us come onto the property and look around. We couldn't find anything. And then we used the ground seeking technology to see if the property if the ground had been disturbed. And it had. There had been disturbance throughout the property, meaning somebody had buried or at least moved the soil at some point. And when we asked, when we told the father that we would like to dig on the property at this point, as opposed to just looking around, the father refused. I don't believe the father had any clue what was going on, to be quite honest. But once he realized that the ground-seeking instrument showed some disturbance in the land, he wouldn't let us dig.
But didn't you ever, you know, couldn't you seek a warrant, you know, from the district attorney to go there with any corroborating evidence to dig? We
tried, and they wouldn't give us a warrant on Tiny's testimony and just the fact that the land had been disturbed. We couldn't get a warrant.
Okay, that's peculiar, but maybe not. I mean, these things do happen, you know, for audiences out there. It just really depends on the dynamic and, of course, the character, you know, of the person involved. There are a lot of intricacies involved in something like that. But look, here's another thing. So when you presented your findings on this case, what did you do then? Because you tried to open a new case with all this evidence. You presented your findings, right?
Well, it actually gets a little more complicated. Tiny had given us another individual that had done a similar Son of Sam-like shooting. I don't remember if the persons shot were actually killed or just shot. But it was never investigated back in the 70s as a Son of Sam type killing because the victims were black. And that was out of the norm for the Son of Sam at the time. But Tiny gave us the individual who actually did the shooting. And it was another one of his biker associates who had done this shooting. And that guy was actually in Sing Sing at the time. So if we could get this guy to also confirm some of the stuff Tiny had told us, that would be 2 individuals that we'd have on board working with us to put these pieces together. But the problem was this guy had no intentions of talking to us, probably, because he wasn't looking to get out of, see, Tiny wanted to get out of jail right there and then. This individual didn't reach out to us. So he had no reason to tell us, yeah, I did that shooting. I shot these 2 people with a 44 caliber gun like Berkowitz. He wouldn't tell us. He had no reason to tell us. And we told Tiny that. Why would this guy is not going to cooperate? He said, well, let me give you this. The same individual was playing basketball in Brooklyn, and he got involved in an argument with another guy playing basketball. He went to his car in front of a park full of people, and he killed. Now, this is separate from all the Berkowitz stuff. He went to his car, he got a gun out, and he killed the guy who was playing Berkowitz in front of 50 people. I said, okay, if I could find that case, what I'll do is, and this is what I did. I found the case, and what we did was we went to Sing Sing, and I told him, there were 50 witnesses that saw you shoot this guy several years ago and kill him. Here's a list of witnesses, which of course I didn't have. I said, you either cooperate with us or you're going to get charged with this homicide. And when I want you to cooperate with us, I want you to cooperate regarding the Son of Sam style killing that you did or shootings that you did. He gave us a written statement confessing to the shooting in the park of the basketball player and a written statement with regards to the Son of Sam-like shooting that he supposedly did.
Now, to come in there for the audience, the Son of Sam killings back in the 1970s, David Berkowitz, was also, that string of murders was also known as the 44 caliber killings. And one of the problems with forensics, on the gun was because it was a 44 and it was, it was modeled the way it was. It could be fired, inside a plane, for instance, and not pierce the outside casing. So ballistics couldn't always match how the gun was spinning out of this 44 caliber. That was one of the problems that, that gave the police a real headache in matching things on this case. Has to be said. That's right, Mike.
Yep, that's correct.
Ballistics, yeah. So, but you matched this. I mean, sometimes you could, it's my understanding. Sometimes they could not. This was another reason why David Berkowitz had such a long run, right? Now, so what happened then?
Well, at that point, we were ready to start really moving on the case, and we had set up an interview to go see David Berkowitz up in, I don't remember what jail he was in, but we had set up an interview to go see Berkowitz. And the NYPD basically cut us down and told us no good. The case was shut down.
Right. So when you mean shut down, I mean, you've got a really vast experience of cases being opened, shut down, whatever in your career. So when they told you shut down and you presented this kind of evidence, do you think that was fair, or do you think it was a normal thing that may happen, or was there anything else to it?
I mean, cases don't get shut down normally. Why should they? If there's more people to be arrested, or more people, or any people that need to be arrested in regards to a case, you go and you lock them up. I never, in the past I've heard of cases, the brass or NYPD shutting cases down, and I've always been a little suspect of that, if it really happens or not. I can't imagine why it would happen. But they did it to me, and on the initial order, so to speak, of being told to leave this case alone and don't let it go anywhere, that's it, I kind of ignored the order and tried to proceed and tried to go see Berkowitz anyway. And then it came down a lot harder, that basically leave the case alone. That's the end of it. Put it away. And it was actually taken away. A lot of our reports disappeared. A lot of these interviews disappeared. That guy's written statements disappeared. Basically, the whole case just is gone.
Right. Now, viewers would find that very strange, right, as you're saying. That if there's further evidence is revealed in a case, no matter how long that would be, the perpetrators, they will be investigated, and the perpetrators, if there's evidence, they will be charged, right?
Right.
So do you think she was reprimanded for this?
I bet, yeah. Well, I was told just, yeah, that's it. Either give the case, put the case away, or, you know, my career is over, basically.
Okay. Well, let's go back then to Robert de Grimson. Now he's English heritage, and this is, you know, he's the leader of this, the Process Church of the Final Judgment. So what is this about? Tell us about this and the links in this case.
Well, he was the guy who initially he had been with L. Ron Hubbard from the Church of Scientology. He was a devotee of L. Ron Hubbard's. In fact, the woman he marries was L. Ron Hubbard's ex-girlfriend or ex-wife. He did his own offshoot where he concentrated basically just on Satan and the good and the evil, and how life is not all good and not all evil. And his devotees were supposedly, that's part of the Son of Sam cult. He actually lives in Staten Island, New York, Robert de Grimson.
Now, as an investigative journalist, I am simply the witness here to get to the truth, get to the facts, and as much as ascertain behind the curtain of what actually may or would have happened here, and then it's left to the jury. Well, it is the jury, but it's the listeners. You know, the viewers, they make their own mind up. They are the jury. They are the jury. It's our thing to present the facts, right? And that's why we like to stay to the facts as much as we would know them, right? So why is this guy? So is this guy? Was there any evidence against this guy, and he's still free? He lives in Staten Island.
Yeah, up until recently. I mean, at this point, he's in his late 80s or 90s. So to be honest, I don't even know if he's alive anymore. But he did. He lived in Staten Island. I tried to interview him, you know, years ago, and he basically gave me a blank stare, like as if he didn't understand English, which of course he understands English. But that was the most I got out of him. And are you asking what's his connection or direct connection?
Well, was there any evidence against this guy? Is the first thing.
No, I mean, there's no evidence saying that he directed people to do this, or that he ordered these shootings. Or there's no evidence to prove that.
So what's the link? What's the link, Mike? Where you can say that he was linked in some way to what we're discussing here,
other than the fact that he was the founder of that satanic church or satanic cult, and these individuals were disciples of his, so to speak, and maybe they did their own thing and their own offshoot, but he was like the original satanic priest of that particular cult.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying that. So the people who you had evidence, which you verifiable evidence, was people under that umbrella who was associated under this church. He was the supposed leader of it. Yeah.
Correct.
So, what did you think about all this then in your career? What did you do with your career after this case? What did you go into in your career after this?
Well, after this, I went to a couple of units. I was in the Secret Service task force. I worked in the special fraud squad, and that's actually where I retired. My office was with the Secret Service West African Electronic Crimes Task Force, which was actually in the World Trade Center, 7 World Trade Center.
Yeah, so you're very experienced as a detective, and you've seen a lot. So now we're going to go a little bit back again to your upbringing, because you grew up on Manhattan's Lower East Side. Now this is
I worked in Manhattan's Lower East Side. I grew up in Brooklyn.
Oh, sorry, Brooklyn. Well, your career was in Alphabet City. Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
You must have seen a lot there. Tell us about some of the mob guys there, some of the mobsters, and what was your idea of what that environment was like when you was policing it?
Well, let me go back. Let's start the most of the mob experience I've dealt with, although the Lower East Side is known for mobsters, not so much where I worked Alphabet City, but on the other side, down by the other side of Lower Manhattan. Growing up in Brooklyn, that's where most of my encounters with mobsters and made guys, associates, that's where my, I guess, so-called knowledge comes from, growing up in Canarsie, Brooklyn.
Now we're going to go further in because I know around that time it comes just after, in the 80s, the Pizza Connection, for instance, right? Alphabet City was the heroin capital of the world at one point, right? So let's go back to, we're going to go there. Let's go back to Brooklyn. So give us some of the names about, the made guys that you grew up with and how close you come to actually going down that path.
Well, I mean, guys I hung out with were godsons of Vic Amuso, who later becomes the head of the Lucchese crime family. And these were my closest friends. Other guys were just fathers were associates and members of the Gambino family. Like I said, the two main crime families in that part of Brooklyn were the Lucchese's and the Gambino family.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So you've grown up around it. Why I know you had some scrapes where you could have went either way. Tell us about one of them scrapes. There was one in a bar that was mob related. What happened there?
So two of my friends who I hadn't seen very often, they weren't like guys I hung around with on a steady basis. Just like guys you'd see once in a while. They had asked me if I wanted to make a couple of quick bucks, basically. And it wasn't so much that I needed the money. I mean, I worked, I was hustling, I didn't need the money, but it was more of a thrill thing, excitement, be with your friends, knock around kind of stuff. And what they were going to do is they were going to knock off this shuttered bar, this bar restaurant that had been closed. And that was in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And they were going to do it on the behalf of Eddie Leno, who was one of John Gotti's at the time's right-hand man. Now, Eddie Leno was known in my neighborhood as a coke guy. He was like the main connection for most of the Canarsie guys that were dealing weight in coke. Now, I never had any dealings with drugs at all as a kid, but I knew who did. And I knew just by word of mouth that these particular guys were getting their coke from Eddie Leno. In any event, this particular bunch of guys was saying they were going to go hit this bar, take these Joker poker machines out, these cigarette machines out, and Eddie Leno was going to pay them for them. And if I was interested in doing it with them. And I was, just like I said, not so much for the money, although I wanted the money, but I thought I'd get a kick out of it. And that's what we did. One of the guys, he heisted some kind of a box truck. We went in down to the Red Hook section of Brooklyn late one night, and I hopped over a couple of fences, and I broke into the back door. I let them in through the front, and we took out these Joker poker machines. I don't know how many, but a lot, and cigarette machines. Put them in the box truck, and we brought them over to where we were going to meet Eddie Leno. I had never met Eddie Leno before. Like I said, I knew the name. I knew he was John Gotti's guy. When we pull out into this parking lot of a park in Brooklyn, he gets out of the car. The one individual, the one friend of mine who had been actually doing the dealings with him, he was going to handle everything. He gets out, he shows him the Joker poker. Eddie Leno's not happy because he wants us to take them somewhere else. He wants us to follow him to another part of Brooklyn with this stolen stuff. and the stolen van. I felt like I was getting screwed over, to be honest. I thought Eddie was trying to be cute and just not pay. You know, he was going to bring us to another part of Brooklyn, and he was going to be a little cheap to these young kids. And that's what we were young. We were young, I guess, young, naive kids. When I'm standing outside the van, I tell him, my friend, listen, I'm not going. What's going on with the money? This was the deal, to come here and get paid, and that was it. Give him the stuff and get paid. Now we got to go take a ride over to a whole nother section of Brooklyn. Eddie Leno hears me. And obviously he's not happy. So he calls me over. And he gives me a once over, and he's obviously pissed off, and he wants to know what my problem is. And of course I was scared. You know, I was a kid. He was a known gangster. And I told him, it's not a problem, but I thought I was getting paid. And again, he looked me over. I thought he was either going to pull his gun out and shoot me right in front of everyone, or I thought he was going to try to hit me, you know, just smack me in the mouth. And then in any event, he decides, he reaches into his pocket, he pulls out a wad of money. He asks me what I think, what I was supposed to get paid, and I told him. He takes a couple of bills out, and he kind of like, in a derogatory manner, just kind of like throws the money at me, like he's doing me a favor. Which again, I earned, not that what I was doing was right, obviously, but I wasn't easy doing what we did, and we took a risk, and we drove around in the stolen truck.
And you wanted to get paid, right? Yeah.
And I wanted to get paid. And he threw the money at me. And like I said, when I took the money, I walked away, and I thought he was going to cap me in the back of the head with his 38, to be honest. He didn't. Now my friends were going to go. They still wanted to go and finish the job for him, and I wasn't going. I got paid. That was the deal for me. Leave me here, and I'll get home. And that's what I did. And let me just tell you something about those two guys, just because it's such a crazy world. So these were two guys that I grew up with. And like I said, they weren't my steady hangout guys, but we grew up together. Well, one of them, about a year or two later, gets hooked up with Tommy Karate from Brooklyn. And his head, not Tommy Karate, my friend's head washes up on the beach in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. And I'm not saying it was Tommy Karate, but apparently my friend got involved with Colombians, ripping them off, which was Tommy Karate's MO also, from what I learned later. And my friend's head landed on the beach in Coney Island. The other guy supposedly was going to go straight, or try to go straight, and he got a job working in a armored truck company. Well, apparently working 9 to 5 wasn't good enough in an armored truck company. He decided he was going to try to rip off the armored truck, right? Because that's where the money is. He gets caught, and he flips. And he flipped on the people he was with, and now he's in witness protection program. So, obviously it was a bad scene.
You see, there's a lot of ways that life can translate in Brooklyn, you know, for sure, you know, or any major city. You know, especially Brooklyn, you know. I do a lot of interviews with a lot of guys there, and a lot of stories about how it is to grow up in a place like Brooklyn, and how tough it is to survive, and the choices that are presented to you. But I want to go into that because you're a different case in the sense you grew up with these guys. You know, just give us an example, a real life story of how you had to survive and what you done on the way through. But then you changed and you go right the other way. So what was it in you that drove you away? Because it's so seductive, Mike. Many people, they go towards what they think is the glitz or the good time or the power. What makes you different?
Well, I'll tell you a really quick story, and it kind of led me away from that life, as this situation did. But this one also, there was a couple. I was hanging out with my crew, so to speak, and we were hanging out on a Friday night in the summer. We were like 17 years old, 16, 17, 18. and we were hanging out in front of a pizzeria in Brooklyn, obviously, in Canarsie. And we were basically getting ready to wrap the night up, and we were hanging out in front of this pizzeria, and an Italian guy comes out, a little Italian guy, Brooklyn guy, but obviously Italian from the pizzeria, comes out and he asks us to move. Not in a nice way, just in a, it's his store basically, and he says, you guys got to leave, got to get out of here. Well, we didn't move. He came out again, and he said, you guys got to effing leave. The more he said it, the more we didn't want to leave, just because of how kids are, and kind of stupid and naive and a bit of a wise ass. At this point, I decided to leave anyway, because it was the end of the night and we were wrapping it up anyway. Me and one of my friends leaves. My other friends don't leave. So there's about 4 of them that don't leave. The next time this guy comes out with a baseball bat, and he's going to try to take some of my friends' heads off. Well, my friends were pretty street smart and pretty tough. They take the bat from him and they do a number on him. Well, this guy turned out to be a guy named Bruno Facciolo. Now, Bruno, the name Bruno, we had all known, just the first name. And we had known that he was a mobster, and we had known that he was old time, old school, tough. And although we hadn't seen him, back in those days, if you would ask anybody about Bruno, they knew maybe not who he was facially, but they knew who he was and what he was. Well, that's the guy that my friends tune up that night. They give Bruno a good beating. Bruno Facciolo was a main member of the Lucchese family, and his brother's a main member with the Gambino family. And in the movie Goodfellas, Bruno's the guy that actually brings Tommy DeSimone, or Joe Pesci's character, to get executed. And the reason was because Tommy DeSimone supposedly killed a Gambino guy. And because the one Facciolo brother was a Gambino and the other one was a Lucchese, where Tommy DeSimone belonged, with the Lucchese's, they were contracted to get this kid, Tommy DeSimone, to the location. And that's what they did, and they killed him. Aside from that, after my friends beat up this guy, Bruno Facciolo, and goes to the hospital, I'm assuming, he finds out everyone who was there, who was at the location, and everyone that beat him. Now, as most people know, it's one thing to insult a made guy. That's cause enough for a beating or possible death. But to beat,
another thing to beat someone like that and do a number, violence, physical violence,
right, to a made guy. Somehow he got the names of everybody that went that night. Although my name wasn't included, because and one of my other friends, because we had left right prior to the fight, which I got very lucky. One of the guys that was there, actually 2 of the brothers that were there, like I said earlier, were Vic Amuso's godsons, who was a Lucchese guy at the time, moving up the ranks. And I think Vic saved these guys' lives because retribution was paid to everybody there. Some of the kids got shot. Another one got a bat on his head where they had to put a plate in his head. They were all damaged pretty bad. None of them got killed, but they all got hurt pretty bad. And I think, like I said, I think Vic Amuso saved their lives. But the fact that they were giving up, that one of my crew had to be the one to give everybody up and give everybody's name who was there that night. It was the only way that would happen. And that was one of the things that was cemented in my head that showed me that there was a treacherous life. And, although it might seem glamorous, it was just a treacherous life, and it wasn't something I was looking forward to doing.
Yeah, a treacherous life, certainly. There's a lot of interviews with, a lot of very prominent mobsters on the Stephen Gillett crime files, both UK, US, worldwide. People can tune in there and see for themselves what they think, and they speak in depth about the life. This is why it's fascinating to get your side of it, Mike. And I asked that question. So with that in mind, growing up there, when you started to go the other way towards another life, towards being a detective, what did your friends say to that? Was that okay, or didn't you care? You just chose your path and that was it. How did that work?
You know, I lost I lost all my friends, you know, except my two best friends that also didn't choose that life. But you know, I couldn't see these guys in a casual situation anymore. They used to hang out at a bar that was a mob connected bar. I actually went there once when I was a cop, when I was a rookie cop. There was going to be a little get together, and I went there just to see the guys. And I was welcomed merely for the fact that I was carrying a piece on me, a legit piece on me, because they were expecting trouble, maybe with some. This was like the Lucchese family guys. That's what my friends were more associated with. But they were happy that I was there with a legitimate gun because they were expecting possible trouble. And my badge and my gun would be an asset. Between that and then running into the bathroom to snort coke, that basically solidified the fact that wasn't the life for me.
Okay, so let's go back now to Alphabet City, you know, and your career there and Lower East Side Manhattan. Now, in them days, the heroin epidemic there was very bad. What was that like when you was running cases there, policing cases there?
You know, the reason I went to Alphabet City was when I was in the police academy. I would take the train normally, but once in a while, a friend of mine's father would drive us to the police academy, and he'd get off kind of a shortcut. He'd get off the Houston Street exit, and he would drive through Alphabet City to get to the police academy. Now, he was a cop himself, my friend's father. And when we would be driving through that area, I couldn't believe. Now, as a kid, like I said, 16, 17 with my friends, we'd go to Manhattan, we'd go to 42nd Street when it was really the deuce, when it was gritty, when there was porn on every corner. I mean, we'd go there just to knock around. Alphabet City was totally different from even the grittiest 42nd Street. Why? Because there was nothing but drugs. I mean, you would see lines, literally lines, of people in an orderly fashion waiting to get served heroin. Or you'd see a group of 20 people following one individual to get served dope. It was unreal. I had never seen it, and I was only down there being driven to the police academy, a matter of what, a minute, 2 minutes, and I would see this. I couldn't believe it. In the projects with Wall houses, Reese houses, Baruch houses, all along Avenue D. And I asked my friend's father, who was a seasoned cop at the time. He was in the SWAT team. He was a great guy. Good guy, really good guy. And I asked him, I'm like, what's going on here? How does this go on? And basically he said, you know, the city kind of knows about this and they leave it here to be contained. It's not spreading throughout the city. You want these dope addicts want their dope. They come here. The pushers stay in here. He says it's like a contained, like a virus, so to speak, in this one avenue and these projects. And at the time, Alphabet City, those projects, walled houses, Baruch houses, Reese houses, per square foot, it was the most populated, most dense area in the world. So not only do you have drug addicts and dealers and all that stuff living there, you have obviously good people living there too. And I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that you have kids walking past these lines of drug addicts waiting to cop heroin. And they have to see this every day. People nodding on the corner. It was terrible. So that's why I decided when I had the opportunity, I transferred to Alphabet City. And that's where I wanted to do my police work, basically.
Yeah, and of course, drugs, as we know, it brings a lot of crime, brings a lot of violence, it brings a lot of trauma, right? So thanks for that. So look, I always ask this question, Mike, I'm sure everyone on here, for their very fascinating, bespoke personal journey. For you, it's, you know, for all the things that you've seen, you know, and thank you for inviting us into your life, into your fascinating world, telling us about your experiences all the way through to these people, from the mobsters to, you know, serial killers like the Son of Sam case, Alphabet City, your own growing up as well in the environment, what drove you forward into the life that you've lived. Throughout all of it, Mike, what is the one thing that you think you've learned from it all in your life? And this would be, you know, from being a very senior detective in the New York NYPD.
You know, when I came down to Lower East Side, Alphabet City, and then I eventually got into the plainclothes, a special unit called Operation 8, which was a federally funded government, federally funded unit. You know, I was all gung-ho, and I wanted to lock up the world, and I really wanted to just change a little piece of the world, which I think we did when we took down these major drug dealers. We did a big case with the DEA. We took down 40 drug dealers, and Alphabet City changed. Avenue D changed for a long time. As I got a little bit older and more seasoned, I started to realize that there before the grace of God goes I. And like you said, I could have easily, you know, I had been working down in Alphabet City, and I had seen people I grew up with from Canarsie coming to cop heroin, guys that I knew on a first name basis. And I would see them, and I was like, are you kidding me? You're coming all the way from Canarsie, Brooklyn to cop heroin down here? And that guy just made a mistake in life, and it took him down the wrong path. Very easily for me to have made the same mistake, whether it be with drugs or mob stuff or anything, other kind of crimes. And really, I think that's one of the things I learned. That's something I try to tell people or teach people, that, you know, you're not better, you're not worse. They're not better, they're not worse than us. Different circumstances, different things in life just lead us to different areas, different parts of life.
Thanks for that, Mike. Now, I know you've got a book out there, and, you know, there's TV and there's film stuff and all that, you know, and I know now that people having heard this story, watching this interview, I know they'll search out to find more, you know, about you and your unbelievable story. But Mike Codella, I'd like to thank you for coming on the platform today.
Thank you for having me. And I got to tell you, Steve, I'm a big admirer of you and all of you've done. Really, I've been watching you and looking, investigating you, so to speak. And you're an amazing guy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's really nice, Mike. You know, and I wish you well on your journey. Really, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.